Now that we've adapted the head of our document to the little codes that Joomla needs in order to run this as a Joomla template, let's go ahead and place in the codes that are required to load our modules and the components in the rest of our index.php page. So I'm going to scroll on down here to our body tag. And right now, I have a little note here that says put language switcher and search here. Well, our language switcher, our navigation, our breadcrumbs, the content in the right column, and our menu down in the footer are all modules. So let's go ahead and deal with this module code first. So I've given you a little exercise file down here that has some module code in it. And I'm going to go ahead and copy that line. Controller Command C to copy. And where it says put their language switcher in search here, I'm going to highlight that and say Controller Command V. That is the little bit of code that you need in order to include a module in your web page. And I'm going to go ahead and just clean up the formatting there a little bit. So what does this line of code mean? Well, let's take a look at it. So JDoc include indicates that this is something for Joomla to include right here in this document. What kind of thing am I including? Well, this time it's modules as opposed to the head, which was up at the top of the page. Then it's going to ask us for a module position. Right now, this is position-0. Now, Joomla core templates tend to use this position 0, position 1, position 2, position 3, and so forth. And the reason that they went with module position names like that is because then your module positions are not tied to the way that your template is put together. If you want to take position 0 and you want it at the top of the page, and then you decide you want it at the bottom of the page, you just simply move it. My take on this is no client in the world will ever remember what position 0, position 1, position 2 are. They're just not going to remember it. So I tend not to name my modules these sorts of names. There's nothing wrong with it. It's just a philosophical difference. What I prefer to do is name my module positions by functionality or by positions on the page. That's particularly great for a custom extension where we really can hone down to exactly what it is that we want to appear in our Joomla template, as opposed to a more generic, commercially available template or a template that ships with Joomla, where every position may be used for every kind of module. So I'm going to change this name of position 0 to search, because that is really what's going to go in that spot. In fact, the language switcher will go there too, but it's that search position up in the upper portion of the page. The last part here is a style of HTML5. Now, there are several values that can go here. The style refers to what kind of HTML will be wrapped around this module before it appears on the web page. And historically, that's been a table that's been wrapped around the module before it appears. And in the last versions of Joomla, it was simply a div with a class of module table on it. And it was always a div with a class of module table. These styles are still available to you. So if you make your style have a value of XHTML, you will always have a div. And it will always have a class of module table associated with it. However, this style of HTML5 is new in Joomla 3, and it will allow you to do some interesting things where your module is concerned. So here with the style of HTML5, if we take a quick look at our Joomla site, if I go to localhost/administrator and I log in and I go to extensions, module manager, and I just take a look at one of these modules, let's say search, for example. Under my advanced options, one of the things that I can do if my module is assigned the type of HTML5 is I can use these items here inside of my module editing screen, and I can choose what HTML5 tag I want associated with that module. So as I said, the style of XHTML always wraps a div tag around it. With the HTML5 style, I can choose which tag I want. So do I still want a div? Do I want it to be a section, an aside, nav, address, or article around my module instead? I can also choose my bootstrap size. This refers to that span 1, span 2, span 3, span 4 that we use to put together the Bootstrap framework. So I can specify a bootstrap size to include with that HTML that wraps around that module so that it will fit correctly on my page. I can also choose which header tag I would like associated with that particular module. Do I want it to be in H3? Do I want it to be in H1? Do I need it to be in H6? Or just simply a paragraph? And I can alter that here as well. So why is this important? This is really important with third-party extensions that may not necessarily be Bootstrap compatible yet, What you can do by using these widgets here in the back end of Joomla is you can essentially wrap an HTML tag with the correct Bootstrap markup around it so that it will fit correctly into your Joomla template. That's why these tags are so important. What I would recommend to you at this point in time is, unless you have a very good reason to not have a style of HTML5 associated with your module, I would recommend you just use the style of HTML5 now here inside of your modules. So I'm going to take the same code and I'm going to now copy that and I'm going to paste it into several spots here on my web page. Here, where it says my navigation is going to go here, this is where I am going to include my navigation, and I'm just formatting my code here a little bit to keep it clean. This is going to have a name of nav. Here, where it says my breadcrumbs are going to go here, I'm going to go ahead and paste this in, and this will be breadcrumbs. And a little bit further down, and that's where the content goes. I'm going to skip that for the moment. And here's the right column. Go ahead and paste this one in, and I'm just going to call this right. And then down here at the bottom of the page, I didn't put in a note that said that I wanted to have the footer menu display down here, but I'll go ahead and I'll add the code for doing that. And this will be a name of footer. Okay, so then the last thing I need to do is add my code for where the component is going to go. This is where the articles will display on the web page, where the sitemap's going to display. There's only one component per page, so there's one batch of code for doing this. And back in my little Joomla cheat sheet here, there's just these two lines you need to copy. That's the message and the component, Control-Command-C to copy. And then up here at the top of the page, Control-Command-V to paste those. And if I just hit tab while those two lines are highlighted here in Dreamweaver, I can tab both lines together and keep my code here looking clean. So there we go. We have our lines of code now for all of the modules on the website. We've set them all to the style of HTML5. I've assigned them all positions that will mean something to a client in the long run. And I've also included the codes here for the message, like the thank you for sending the email message, and the component, which would be my articles, my sitemap, and so forth for my website. That's all in place now. And we're done with index.php.